Ladies and gentlemen, we invite you to please take your seats. Our program is about to begin.
Well, hello and welcome. I'm Carla Hayden, the Librarian of Congress, and I'm delighted to welcome you to the appointment ceremony for the 6th class of the National Student Poets. Please give them another hand. I'd also like to welcome those in the hometowns of our national student poets who are watching online this afternoon. St. Margaret's Episcopal School, some people are here, in San Juan Capistrano, California, the Blake School and Minnesota Writing Project in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Very good, okay. Downingtown STEM Academy in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. The John B. Alexander High School in Laredo, Texas. And the Mary Riley Stiles Public Library in Falls Church, Virginia. Now, just a few minutes ago, we held a pinning ceremony for these 5 immensely talented young poets in my office, one of the perks of being the Librarian of Congress. And I got to talk with them about what it means to take on a big public role, championing books and writing, and also to ask them how they started being inspired to make magic with words. And you will hear more about that soon. I'm also very pleased that we are welcoming the National Student Poets Program back to the library. In fact, the very first class received their pens in the library's historic poetry office, home of our U.S. Poet Laureate. Now, for this year's class, we brought back the 21st Poet Laureate, Juan Felipe Herrera. Who was joined by the acclaimed actor and National Student Poetry champion, Alfre Woodard. Now, you'll hear a bit from both of them later, but I'm pleased to say that our recent laureate will be leading a workshop for the National Student Poets tomorrow, Ms. Tracy Smith. I can't, Now, I can't imagine, though, a more enthusiastic and dynamic teacher than Juan Felipe. So, National Student Poets, you are in for a life-changing experience. In fact, life-changing feels like the perfect way to describe your year to come and all you will do in your new roles. You don't have to take my word for it. One of the very first national student poets, Louisa Bancroft, recently wrote about her experience for our Poetry Center blog. And one point stuck out for me. She's now a history teacher in Botswana, and she asks you to, quote, recognize what makes your poetry so precious. its potential to touch others in surprising and comforting ways, its capacity to make us feel communion with other people, to make us feel less unmoored in a chaotic world. So Annie, Kinsale, Ben, Juliet, Camellia, I am eager to hear you read for the first time as National Student Poets, and I look forward to you making good on Louisa's words. And now I'd like to welcome my friend and colleague, Kit Matthew, Director of the Institute of Museum and Library Services, to tell us more about this program and its partners. Kit?
Well, thank you very much, Carla, and thank you for hosting this event here today. We really appreciate your work as a librarian, a former member of the National Museum and Library Services Board, and as a fellow ex officio member of the President's Committee on the Arts and Humanities. On behalf of the Institute of Museum and Library Services, we always enjoy working with our colleagues at the Library of Congress on the National Book Festival, and we look forward to another successful festival this year. I'm delighted to be with you all today to celebrate the 2017 class of the National Student Poets Program. IMLS is proud to have partnered with PCAH and the Alliance for Young Artists and Writers to establish this program, which shares exemplary works from teen poets, like those we honor here today with a national audience. The approximately 123,000 libraries and 35,000 museums nationally and related organizations have long been centers of learning, inspiration, community, and creativity for writers and learners of all ages. And the National Student Poets Program leverages the role of these third spaces, libraries and museums, in promoting the cultural participation of youth and empowering communities to celebrate creative voices. This year's 5 exceptional student writers, Annie, Kinsale, Ben, Juliet, and Camilla, were selected by some of our nation's finest literary voices and leaders in education, rising to the top of more than 300 national medalists in the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards. They'll receive academic awards, opportunities to showcase their work in libraries, museums, and schools, and at special events. We hope these young writers or poets will share their passion, literary creativity, and talent to inspire their peers and community members locally, and foster an even deeper appreciation for poetry. IMLS is actively working with our partners on the future of this program, and we remain committed to recognizing and lifting up the work of young writers like these 5 poets we honor this year. Their voices are powerful, and you will hear that when they read, and so is their poetry. Poetry has the power to inspire curiosity and change the way we perceive our world. It has the power to connect people across generations and spark those critical dialogues in community spaces, including the libraries and museums across our nation. I'd also like to take this opportunity to recognize all the work that the President's Committee for the Arts and Humanities has put into the National Students Poets Program. Their time and energy and dedication has been invaluable to the success of this series of events, so please join me in thanking PCAH staff for making this ceremony and program a success. So in closing, I'd like to share with you a quote from American poet Jane Kenyon. The poet's job is to put into words those feelings we all have that are so deep and so important, and yet so difficult to name. To tell the truth in such a beautiful way that the people, we the people, cannot live without it. In closing, I charge you 5, take poetry into our nation's places of learning, into our schools, museums, our libraries, and community spaces. Reflect and amplify the multiple voices and stories around you. You are a key part of our nation's future, and the caliber of your work and the strength of your passion tells me that the future is indeed bright. So congratulations on your accomplishments. We look forward to following your continued service throughout the next year. And we really sincerely will be following you through social media and in person. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Virginia McEnerney, the Executive Director for the Alliance of Young Artists and Writers, and to tell you a little bit about the program.
Good afternoon, and we are so honored to be here with you all today with our wonderful partners, Dr. Hayden, and the fine folks at the Library of Congress and the Poetry and Literature Center, Dr. Kip Matthew and our colleagues at IMLS, Nancy Weiss and Dennis Nangle, and Robin Dale. Our founding partner, the President's Committee on the Arts and Humanities, supporters including the Poetry Foundation and the Academy of American Poets, esteemed guests Juan Felipe Herrera, Alfred Woodard, and you. I want to honor and acknowledge the inspiration and founder behind the National Student Poets Program, Olivia Morgan, who's also here with us today. Thank you so much for your heart, Olivia. Thank you. I know we have some National Student Poets alums in the audience. Can I see you? Sojourner, do I see you back there? And Michaela, thank you so much for coming. We're so happy to have you here. Thank you. Are you pointing? Stella, you guys, and Gopal and Maya, I see you back there. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming to support your brothers and sisters in poetry. Last April, during National Poetry Month, I accompanied 2016 National Student Poet Maya Salome on her tour of workshops, as she gave workshops and readings across Northern California. One Wednesday night, in a pouring rainstorm, the Yerba Sutter Regional Arts Council in Marysville, California, hosted an open mic reading with Maya as the featured guest. After Maya read a few poems, community members stepped to the stage in work clothes and uniforms and cowboy hats to read their own work. It was an amazing, amazing evening of community building and connection. I think everyone in the room would have been as moved, as wowed, as I was, not only by the quality of the work from the people in the room and the humor and honesty that was expressed, but by the fact that the program does exactly what it sets out to do. It brings poetry into people's lives, and it brings the poetry that's inside them out into their communities. Here is what we know. Poetry lives. It shortcuts the expression of complex emotions and ideas. Poetry matters. It makes good times sweeter, and it makes hard times easier to bear. Like all art forms, it gives shape and depth and texture and meaning to our lives. And teenagers, we have found, are the perfect emissaries. You may know that the word teenager didn't even come into common usage until the 1920s. Before that, you were either a child or an adult. But the Depression and child labor laws and the automobile actually elongated that transition from childhood to adulthood. These fine poets became eligible to be appointed as National Student Poets because they first received a National Poetry Medal in the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards. At the Scholastic Awards, which were founded in 1923, just about that time when teenagers became a common usage, our focus is on advancing and advocating for the creative lives of teenagers. Teen poets are particularly well suited to serve as advocates. They're young enough to be relatable to little kids, and they're mature enough to be taken seriously by audiences like those of us here this afternoon. The 2017 National Poets join a legacy of incredible young writers who feel poetry in their bones. These poets each have strong, unique voices, and their writing reflects the complex realities and emotions that young people face in America today. They are prepared to enter this year of service fully committed to sharing their voices and their insights and their artistry to inspire audiences in large cities and formal venues like the Library of Congress, and in small-town art centers like the one in Marysville, California. Poetry is an ancient art form that continues to reinvent itself and make itself newly relevant, generation after generation. And we are so proud to be presenting this generation's finest young writers. The writer and playwright James Baldwin wrote, "You write in order to change the world, knowing perfectly well that you probably can't, but also knowing that literature is indispensable to the world. The world changes according to the way people see it. And if you alter, even by a millimeter, the way people look at reality, then you can change it." These young people are changing the world, and we are so honored to be here with you to launch you into your year of service. It's now my honor to welcome an artist who has advocated for these poets from the very beginning, and we're so proud to have you here with us once again, the acclaimed actress and activist, Alfre Woodard.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Yeah. I have to tell you, I am totally hyped to be here with you, young poets and your families today, as well as the intrepid Dr. Carla Hayden. Not only is it an honor, it is a joy and an awakening and an absolute delight. The National Student Poets Program is something quite dear to my heart. I served on Barack Obama's President's Committee on the Arts and the Humanities when the visionary Olivia Morgan proposed this program 6 years ago. Together, she, the PCAH, and lots of other entities dreamed, and they labored this into fruition, and it has continued to blossom each year since. Engaging in this work and hearing the voices of our young people from across the nation has fortified my education and sustained my hope for and my belief in this generation. Now I get to be here with you beauties and congratulate you exceptional few who stand with us today. I applaud you poets who inspire me in my work and my everydays. I see you alumni. The Obama President's Committee has a history of catalyzing important events in the arts, and this program is one of our proudest achievements. The National Student Poets is the highest honor bestowed upon a young poet by their country. With this great honor comes great responsibility. Each of you will spend the next year sharing your art and showing the country how crucial the arts are to each individual and to our society as a whole. We invest in you, as you are the bright promise of our extraordinary nation. We ask in return that you pay that investment forward. You go forward engaging with teens nationally and helping us to reach those who have yet to discover the power of poetry and the strength that comes from discovering one's voice. Your presence in our schools will inspire in others the courage to discover the raw beauty and freedom that comes with expressing, owning, and sharing who they are. When PCAH created this program, we had, as you've heard, two critical partners in the IMLS and the Library of Congress. Thankfully, still, because of them, the NSPP is guaranteed a long life going forward. Also, the resources of all of you in this room and the many more outside of this room ensure that NSPP will carry on the purpose and the promise of this venture. And especially with the support of our brilliant and woke alumni poets, the 2017 laureates will take off soaring and join that continuum, moving across this country, opening minds and hearts. as our nation crawls, then slouches, occasionally sprints, and now limps toward our more perfect union, it is imperative that we Americans recognize and understand our interconnectedness, that we awaken to our common humanity. Fortunately, we have the power of chosen words to aid us in expressing that truth. Poetry is the mother tongue of the heart, and we are ever grateful that you young ones speak it so well. It's not an easy task what you have before you, but it is a challenge that you're primed to meet. Turn around, well, you'll see it when you come up here. I want you to look at all the faces in this room. As you shove off, know that we will be at the ready during your year of service to inflate your water wings, to send you kind bars and pressed juices, no Red Bulls, to laugh with you, to cry a little, to applaud you, and to feed you when you are nearby. We are tremendously excited about all that you will accomplish. So right now, I am going to ask you all to come to the stage. Please come up now. I know. I am excited to introduce each of the 2017 poets for their first public reading. Then we'll present you with your plaques. Our first poet is Annie Castillo from Falls Church, Virginia. Welcome, Annie.
Hello, I'm Annie Castillo, and I am representing the Southeast region this year as a National Student Poet, and today I will be reading 2 poems. This is Love Letter for a Library. A creased corner dips under my thumb like Atlas bruising beneath sky. This fold is untidy, accidental origami I can't smooth out. A stranger's hand pressed this paper like flowers. She left me her crumpled daisy. I dissected syllables in the window seat, heard my sister curse how poetry won't be quiet. In this place, stories don't stay dead. Here, I learned Venus flytraps swallow spiders, plums help forgetfulness, and Athena emerged from her father's splitting forehead. Palimpsest, noun, parchment from which writing has been completely erased to make room for another text. Something altered, but still bearing visible traces of its earlier form. Synonyms: butterfly, grief, library. On airplanes, I avoid aisle responsibility, but here I am brave. Here I must only unfold a corner to believe I can begin again. Outside, a boy plays in blue boots after rainfall. I imagine this land as the orchard it once was, and that he mashes fallen peaches with every step. And I'm now going to read my second poem on the discovery of dinosaurs. I dream of a phantom femur far below, pale as puddled moonlight on a chapel's roof. The beast became bones, time shucking scales from its body, sinew dissolving into clumps of stringy roots. The earth is now a crypt. A dragon's tail perhaps were the murmurs, or a giant skeleton. Rib cages emerged in vast, hollowed chambers like a cathedral's arch, then teeth came next. Oh God, what is this creature? Whispered like a prayer. I used to think of the dinosaurs who became bones and shadow, like a lilac forgotten between the pages of a book. Now I think of the ones who unearthed the bones, so time's raw sunlight could touch those ghosts. Thank you.
Castillo, I present you with your National Student Poet. Kinsale Houston from Corona Del Mar, California. Please come up, Kinsale. Just in case.
Hi, my name is Kinsale Houston, and I am the National Student Poet for the West, and I will be reading 2 poems today. The first is called Where I Come From, 1992. Sticky peach overpowers muggy bug-infested sky. Backwater, drain pipe fodder, colonial house with ravine shade. Plantation homes embody black backs bleeding ghost stories. Gravestone front doors knock an empty Alabama vacuum space. White boy, Brooklyn-born, pre-spiced latte infiltration. Interracial hands entwined in reed pipe marriage basket. Caucasian curls breathe and Navajo bandana. Oldest of 5 holler boys, grandsons to Ellis Island Campbells. Father gone, single mom, washed himself to Irish bone. Preacher's daughter, beloved father, basketball fanatic. Valedictorian tinted glasses threaten not even stepping off red sand. Front porch, good enough for reservation, pulls at sinking canyon feet. Smoky sage tracks lonesome wind calls after her Hanover-bound plane. Southern discomfort in sideways glances. Recoiled fingers dropping penny change and chubby multicolored hands. My brother, civil rights rally namesake, sucking Sweetwater, Montgomery air. My sister, old enough to sniff out powdered sugar bigotry. My second poem is called Eden on Avocado Street. The frozen curb pops like gumballs under our toes as we wait, together, pinky fingers folding pages like secrets under the bus stop sign. You, 12 today, press Gatsby to your breast, familiar names thumbed smooth between aisles of driftwood text. My eyes, dyed blue like window panes, swallow peppered words like pebbles. I poke at each paragraph with the crescent curve of my index finger. You always bring me here, after school, to this mausoleum of lost and found, of yellow cars and mice and men, diamond rings and cherry trees. We swing dance between tragedy and Dr. Seuss, heels beating holes into crayon-colored carpet. Bucking bus rides bring us here where you wear glasses and I weave my legs together on beanbag chairs. You teach me to balance on my toes and cling like book spine glue to that candied lip of asphalt curb, to press brown thumb to tongue when I turn a page, to linger at each corner of my mouth and almost taste the worlds that whirl and coagulate beneath our sticky touch. Thank you.
Congratulations, Kinsale. Please welcome Ben Lee from Edina, Minnesota.
Hi everyone, my name is Ben Lee. I'm going to be the National Student Poet representing the Midwest. I'm really thankful to be here today. The poem I'll be reading is called League of Thieves. I go to school with a class of thieves. Bunch of book-smart brainiacs slugging it in the minor leagues. Yeah, we a eager beaver. a busy bee, but better be more cutthroat than that, because these crooks are cooking up some words for flavor, and you're gonna wanna be here when they're ready to be rare. Yeah, I go to school with a class of thieves, but don't mistake us for those brassy pickpockets or some swindler syndicate. Nah, we ain't your average cat burglar. Our heists are for the long haul, and not just because we're comfortable, but because a one and done doesn't cure a sweet tooth for New York coffee with Caulfield, or some peanut butter and mayonnaise on toast with Yang. No, doesn't cure a craving for a story truth from O'Brien. Among the awkward shelves made of awkward timber, you can find us scavenging for a little unpublished history from a Franklin that ain't famous, reveling in West Egg rambunction, peeking at whose eyes are really watching God. Yeah, I want to learn how to boo like a mockingbird, study how Margie became Marjane. I want to go back to the blue border, where the characters claim their author, and lose my confusion to curiosity. We aren't addicts. At least, I don't think we are. Maybe a little neurotic, greedy of course, but we've got logic because this feels too normal to be immoral. I go to school with a class of thieves taught by a purposeful, plaid man who once assured me that no one ever borrows a story. We pinch from the East Wing stacks in a way that can't be corrosive, because even though we take testimony like vultures, no manual ever resigns from this headspace without packing first. But I rush to catch rubies, metaphors, bubblegum chewed opals, and the multitudes of in-truth imagery whittled onto the bellies of uneven tables. Man, I used to spend spells and half-baked seasons trying to figure out why these themes tasted so independent in my mouth and so separate in yours. But I have discovered that dictionaries can be traded like currency, invested upon like some profitable wares. I have folded ivory epics, episodes, and chapters 7 times over and have never been so indifferent to an ethos racing down the backstretch. So again, I am reminded that this is our library, our bank vault, our quiet acropolis in which we wrap ourselves in trinity knots just to strike enough sage until we are ready to pencil in more than just stale syllables on a title page. Suddenly, from the fictional guidebooks and fairy tale how-tos, us unglorified rustlers must decide whether to paint our hydrangeas like cornflowers, like acid, like the way lavender should smell, only I keep reading, remembering that I go to school with a class of thieves who steal in a heterogeneous union of pleasure and necessity, who keep weaving and shoplifting yarn even though we aren't dog-eat-dog because we have only read about rock bottom. Lightning strikes us somewhere in between a Bart Simpson and a Lazarillo, but not too close to either because we live just outside of literature, spending most of our time picking at the padlock, trying to get back inside. Thank you.
Dude, that was so cool. All right, here, you get on this side. I just said, dude, that was so cool. Congratulations, Dan. Now, please welcome Juliet Lubwama. I have to say, from Downingtown, Pennsylvania.
Hello, my name is Juliet Lubwama, and I'll be representing the Northeast as a national student poet this year. And my first poem is Flight is a 3-part novel. The statuette knows more than Athenaeums, fathoms more than pigtails and fingerprints that flock over her scapula like wings. A question resides in her skin, asking where the blooming hands have gone. I tell her our words are rekindling, and when stories become strangers, we burrow in stagnation. Yet I have endured a reverse metamorphosis and unbecoming. We thought that this was home until it wasn't. Reading lights and lullabies defined our solid ground with hearts in the right place, but they upset the symmetry of our bodies. We tucked novels under our right arms like seeds, like baking legacies, like balance hid in biographies that martyred our juniorities, but sometimes I identify more stick and stone than soul. Sometimes I wish I could still see myself in her, my legs cross-cut behind me like butterflies, carrying a book like a pearl and not a pawn. Willow lines of age gather in her hair and trousers. Still, her cheeks stay rounded like a page mid-turn, a storyline expecting but not waiting to be told. What chiseled rock and novel share is the pliancy of their existences. Witness to the hazy streets, the pancake house, and other rising things. This is a perpetual ascension. This dog-eared parenthesis festers in the cerebellum and mutters sky like echo, like it's still all we know. And my second poem is Trying to Find Home. My parents crossed the ocean, cracking Kant's and Locke's philosophies between their teeth like walnuts. Western learned but foreign in how they hold themselves, like waterlogged apples dangling by the stem. Finding unexpected asylum with strangers, the familiar lilts in their tones, carving homes out of each other. But when a cousin questions where I'm from, my tongue becomes a salmon, pink and floundering, as if an answer could be found in a lifetime. My family tree is worn and trampled, sieged by storms, by dictators, by slavery. My kin arrived with textbooks swaying on their heads and shackles round their ankles. Still, in a land we have yet to call home, our neighbors see our cacao hands, whether they be doused in blood or salt water. Even this can become a sanctuary.
Congratulations, Juliet. And now please welcome Camila San Miguel from Laredo, Texas.
Hello, my name is Camila San Miguel, and I'll be representing the Southwest as a National Student Poet this year. Today I'll be reading My Mother Still Presses My Collars for Me, I Am Not a Poet. Starting at the beginning of a row of bookshelves will sometimes, but not always, lead you to the end. Chu 10, Natural Theology. This library is a religion, a magnified category of the Dewey Decimal System, a system of veneration, a sacrament. 108, groups of people, accelerated rises and degenerations in hives, recorded dutifully in the immensity of civilization's collective data processing. 220, the Bible. I am not a poet, I am scripture, snapping apart at the binding, reverence crushed open on golden page edges, smudges of silk-stringed innocence, spinal thread unraveling. I am knowing serifs in all the wrong places, and I am falling in love with an iconoclast in a library. I draw feathered lines between theology, animal cracker crumbs, and philosophy, and I dub the three doctrines a cornerstone of true and inherent self-understanding. 561, paleobotany. a study in the army of ladybugs marching between carpet fibers, paleo as an ancient, as in connecting of generations, 340, law. I write memorandums in this library and not poetry, although whispers of beauty can be found between pre-sentencing reports, statutes defining our boundaries, and we sit and yawn and ponder over the best way to write stoic opinions, hostility wrapped in the polite gauze of directness. The sacrilege of ambiguity is not a luxury afforded in these stacks. 114, space, 115, time. Stanzas are tucked into different corners. These words are charred splinters of bookshelves being burned. They are singed church steeples, the vernacular of a child learning to build and destruct things within the boundaries of sincerity of, is this me, reflected in the titles jumbled on the way to my mind of, surely not, refracted in the beeping of a sensor tag. 184, Platonic philosophy. Humanism is denoted by the currency of computer-generated rocks used for permission to enter the playground, and for a child, the art of self-betterment is often pursued through the carving of another crevice of knowledge, the addition of a paperback committed to memory. The edges of the universe sputter on our ivory domes, skimming cloud-painted frescoes, while modern-day patrons skim popsicle-stained fingertips on the frames of library double doors, flanked by figures of eternal perplexity, captured in the face of marble statues, mirrored in a moment of revelation. 120, the self, I am this, a splintering facade, the weight of millions before me, here, a Palladian homage to everything that holds society together, unfathomable worlds cracking open in an instant, and today it is reduced to one question. 608, patents. Why do patent lawyers need science backgrounds? I receive a muddled answer from a student in the elevator. At the library, this is a question I etch into a scrap of paper and tuck into the cushion of an armchair. If I come back in a week, I will have an answer. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations to Juliet. So, I am overwhelmed. I am overcome. Please give our 2017 poets another round of applause. Yeah, because you're going to want to see what's happening next. Okay. So right now, please welcome to the stage Joey Reisberg, a National Student Poet from 2016, and he's going to share some reflections with us. Joey. Nobody's drank that water, so you can have it. Amen. Good to see you.
Hello. It's so great to be here on this amazing day. And here's some reflections of this past amazing year. In June, my fellow 2016 National Student Poets and I stood in a third grade classroom at the Harlem Academy, listening to 9-year-olds recite an original collaborative poem about ice cream. I like to think of this moment as essential during the madcap rush of the past year. The brightness of young voices proudly exclaiming their creation, I lost my place for a second. The smiles as lines like swirly, I wish I could have some more. The tempting taste is lovely and it makes us feel good ring through the air. The vividness of their poem, the imagery of sprinkles and sunshine, it all feels like a beautiful dream. I think I can speak for all my fellow poets when I say this year was a whirlwind. It all started back in September when we were appointed at the White House by former First Lady Michelle Obama. And after that came a dizzying rush of readings and workshops and appearances and high school. Our pack of poets have traversed the country from the Dodge Poetry Festival in Newark, New Jersey, to the Aspen, Colorado Ideas Festival, to Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and El Paso, and Northern California, and Minnesota, and Nashville, and New York City, and San Diego, and Chicago, and Dallas, and Atlanta. Try and track our progress on a map, and you'd get a messy spaghetti tangle of crazily intersecting lines. Our service projects include working with first-generation immigrant youth, the elderly, elementary school students, and mine happening next month, a celebration of local poetry at the Baltimore Book Festival. We've met poets like Mark Jody and Edward Hirsch, performed at Carnegie Hall, spent an afternoon at the Huffington Post, done radio interviews and TV appearances, and in my case, read a poem about chicken fat on the Lincoln Center stage. That's a long story. But of course, we were not alone on these endeavors. So a million thank yous go to Hannah and Deborah and Virginia and everyone at the Alliance for Young Artists and Writers and the President's Committee on the Arts and Humanities and the Institute for Museum and Library Services. And thank you to our parents, and a special thank you to Dr. Carla Hayden and the Library of Congress for hosting the appointment ceremony this year. Libraries are where I read some of the first poems of my life at the Enoch Pratt in downtown Baltimore. Libraries align with one of the central missions of the National Student Poets Program, to foster creativity and hope with accessibility, to bring knowledge and literature to people who really need it. And to the class of 2017, congratulations. You are here today because of your astounding poetic promise, because you show the spark of something special. Right now is your celebration time. Savor this moment of joy and let the affirmation you are experiencing today guide you throughout your year of service. You will be challenged to bring out the best parts of yourself, to do things you've never even thought about doing, to stand and to realize you serve a unique and necessary purpose, whether you are standing in front of audiences of 1 or 1,000. It's not easy, but we don't write poetry because of its simplicity. As poets, you have learned to love complexity, to reside within ambiguity, to ask questions that may not have answers. And now you must take those things you already do so well and apply them to the experiences this year will bring. Above all, the National Student Poets Program is about communication. Poetry itself is, of course, communication, a kind of telepathic understanding built with metaphor and imagery and all the intuitive things which the perceptive jurors have loved about your writing. But at the root of the amazing year you are about to embark on is the same basic principle. How are you going to take the acclaim and joy of right here and right now and bring it to your own community? How are you going to use poetry to uplift the voices of those who deserve to be celebrated and heard? How can you build doors and gateways with your beautiful words? And here's a secret. I, as a recent alumni, do not fully know. Yes, I've been through the magical and transformative year, but I do not have all the answers. But that's the beauty of this program. We have each other, a now 6-year network of poets dedicated to answering the lofty and ambitious questions NSPP poses to us. We each contribute a little bit more and a little bit more to bring poetry to America. Swelled heads and going solo are opposite to the spirit of poetry, despite the stereotype of a poet as a disgruntled loner. You will learn that poetry is a vibrant and growing world, a tightly bound community. And so we, the alumni, have a request. We need your words. We need your words to be honest and true, to be diverse, to be funny, to reflect your soul while still standing up for others. A lot has changed in the year since I and the class of 2016 have been appointed. So we need your words to guide us forward, to give us hope and show us the brave new future of the National Student Poets Program. Thank you. Thank you. It is my honor to welcome Poet Laureate Juan Felipe Herrera.
Thank you very much. What a wonderful presentation. Let's give him a big mano. And let's give Aubrey a big mano too. Why not? Let's give her the biggest mano. And our new National Youth Poets, let's give them a super heartful mano. A little bit bigger. That's the feeling. That's the feeling. And Dr. Carla Hayden, who's charting a new course for us, a super mano. And let me just mention Rob Casper and the staff and the Poetry Center and the Literature Department, a big super abrazo mano. And you know, this is what it's all about right here. This is how the poetry is formed. This is how we do it. People say, how do you do the poetry, and where does it come from? This is how it happens when we are with each other, and when we think of each other, and we sit down in a lonely corner, or we come out in a blasting, explosive space. It's the same. We make contact with each other, and we create friendships, and we get ideas, and we listen to a term, and we go, oh, I hadn't thought of that. Palimpsest, I hadn't thought of that. I want to look it up. And an erasure that has traces of the actual original text. And perhaps that's what we're doing now, creating a new text. And I think that's what our new team is going to be doing. Looking at that, at the plane, at what looks like a blank, and to pull out the messages and to pull out the letters and the voices and bring them forward. And this is exactly how it happens, by listening to each other, by trying out our poems. Can you believe it? How was that? How was that? Wasn't that just, you know, incinerating? And that's the feeling. If your heart's not on fire and your energy is not pulsing through the floor and up through the roof, then you're not doing poetry. And you were doing poetry. That's what you were doing. Weren't they just intense and beautiful? Aren't they prophets? Let's give them another big hand. And that's what's going on, you know. The new example, the new experiment, the new text, the new horizon, the new voice, the new path. And I think we heard it today. All those formulas, all those scientific excavations and tests that you all did to come up with those poems and the words that bring them out. I think every line was a pathway. Every line was a capillary. Every line was a synapse to the new idea. And that's what we want right now. We need that new idea. We need the prophets. We need the new scientists that do poetry, the new poetry volcanic scientists of the nation. And thank you. Thank you for dedicating your life to this. Thank you for dedicating your extreme intelligence and creativity to this thing called poetry and this place called the nation. Thank you for pouring your lives into it, your young, powerful lives into what we all love here at the library, is words and histories and self and spirit and communication and discovery with your voices. Another big mano. You know, people do say, you know, why are you a poet? And why are you doing that? Why aren't you, doing something else? And it's great to do poetry. And it's such a place to be. We can play. We can, as Malcolm Margolin said, what happened to recess? We can do a little recess. But that recess is a different kind of recess. Perhaps it's a real recess. I was hanging out with Lee Young Lee in Humboldt, as you know, one of our great poets. And he says, Juan Felipe. I said, yes, Lee Young. He says, wait a minute. Juan Felipe, I got to talk to you. I go, yes, go ahead, Lee Young. He says, I got to tell you. I said, please do. And he says, Juan Felipe, I want to be standing up at the edge of a volcano, staring into the mouth of creation. I go, that's very good, Lee Young. But that's what it is. That's what it is. You're standing at the edge of that volcano, which is now, and you're staring down at the mouth of creation, which is a very daring thing to do. And didn't you feel that? Didn't you feel that edge of that volcano in their voices? Didn't you see what they were seeing just a tad? Didn't you see it sputtering and boiling and exploding at you? That was hot. You guys did some hot stuff up here. That was some hot stuff, you know. I can barely, touch the podium. And that is what we want, And that's what poetry does. It finds that new thing. It grasps it. It grasps that which is ungraspable, which we all are after. And it cannot be done in a straight line. And it cannot be done not even in a rectangular space, even though Einstein worked with rectangles and squares, and yet he said they had no volume. I said, what is that again? A rectangle without volume, and yet it has walls? And that's what you're doing. You're creating these paradoxes, and you're taking us through them, and that's what we need right now. We need that paradox to be not explained, but presented to us so we can travel through it and find it. How beautiful that is. And how powerful poetry can be with new minds that are born right in front of us. Thank you so much. I believe in you. And do you believe in them? And this is how poetry happens, how we learn, how we do poetry, isn't it? We listen to each other, we get excited by each other, and we go, I'm going to take those terms. So that's what I did, reading your poems, how complex and direct and beautiful they are, and how many secrets they contain. So I did a cardboard poem. I usually run out of paper. And I make believe that the shirts I take to the cleaners will come back fully ironed, but they always come back crinkled. But what I do get out of it is the shirt board. So then I'll write a poem on it. It feels better because it has density and softness and color, and it's brown and it looks like a graham cracker. I like all that, and I can draw on it. So this is called A Stranger. Now the question is reading my own writing. A stranger pressed his paper like flowers. And I took, as you can begin to feel, some lines and images and words from your poems, if that's okay. A stranger, and this is for you. A stranger pressed this paper like flowers, like mountain eye and thunderbolt face and skeleton hunger forever, hungry in the storms over Houston, like me, like you, flowering, suffering, giving our skin to the dead for just one more life. Gatsby and driftwood, my breast died with dawn, died with nothingness. Not the easy nothingness, not the easy nationalism. I'm talking freedom. Yellow cars, bend, yes, bend, like that. Beat the holes, beat the crayon blast on the first precipice of the first unknown galaxy. That's you. I'm talking about I'm talking about unborn yet born, unsaid yet with new letters, and the addict spells and the half-baked ivory episodes and the half-baked guidebooks to nowhere. You see, here, now you, yes, you, lightning strikes and apologizes to the tiny ponds. You must take note, darling. We are that pond. We are that question in her skin, in there, in this, in that, in this and thou. No. This and that. Just a dog-eared parenthesis of the cut-up, split breath we break to live, to say, you are here. Welcome. Thank you. That's a shirtboard poem for you, dedicated to you. And I want to read one more. Let us, for the moment, let us send our meditations to Houston. Let us send our meditations to Houston. To Kaisha Williams, who took her children to her mother's place and returned and in her house and never came back. And to all the people in these storms, and to the Saldivar family, whose son obeyed his grandfather who had Alzheimer's, and he said, well, you know, in our culture, we obey our elders. And he was right. He's right. Grandfather said, go, come on, you got to go. And that's all right. What happened was that the car with the two children and the grandfather kept on going, and the grandson stepped out, just got out, hoping to open the van, and he couldn't do it. So let us send our deep meditations of love and concern, and your own heart most of all, to all those families. This is At the Crossroads, a sudden American poem. Rest in peace, Philando Castile, Alton Sterling, Dallas police officers, Lorne Ahrens, Michael Kroll, Michael J. Smith, Brent Thompson and Patrick Samarripa, and all their families, and to all those injured. This is on the shootings in Dallas. At the Crossroads, a sudden American poem. Let us celebrate the lives of all as we reflect and pray and meditate on their brutal deaths. Let us celebrate those who marched that night, who spoke of peace and chanted, Black Lives Matter. Let us celebrate the officers dressed in blues, ready to protect. Let us know the departed as we did not know them before. Their faces, bodies, names, what they loved, their words, the stories they often spoke. Before we return to the usual business of our days, let us know their lives intimately. Let us take this moment, and impossible as this may sound, let us find the beauty in their lives in the midst of their sudden and never imagined vanishing. Let us consider the Dallas shooter. What made him? What happened in Afghanistan? What flames burned inside? Who was that man in Baton Rouge with a red shirt selling CDs in the parking lot? Who was that man in Minnesota, toppled on the car seat with a perforated arm and a continent-shaped flood of blood? on his white tee, who was that man prone and gone by the night pillar of El Centro College in Dallas? This could be the first step in the new evaluation of our society. This could be the first step of all our lives. Thank you, my dears. Thank you so much. Welcome.
Thank you, dear Juan Felipe, for that reading and for that inspiring talk. And speaking of inspiration, thanks as well to Joey and to Alfrey. And thanks for our work together to celebrate our new class. I'm Rob Casper. I'm the head of the Poetry and Literature Center here at the library. And my job is to let you know there's a reception outside after I finish speaking. So while you're there, please grab some food and drink and say hello to our new poet superheroes. And while you're at it, you should pick up a Meet the Poets flyer so you know where to go see said superheroes in a couple of days at the National Book Festival, which you should all go to. Before we officially end, though, let's do it one more time. Please join me in another round of applause for the 2017 National Student Poets.
Don't go anywhere.